Hello everyone, it's Teddy Chen here today. How is everyone doing in the Easter weekend? I trust you all being well. In today's video, I want to talk about speaking in front of the camera and how you can benefit from some of the tips that I practice speaking behind the scene. So you can apply some of these to yourself. Without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, what I've noticed from my previous video is my clarity and pronunciation isn't that great in some scenarios. I did some reflection, and what I realized is I'm not using my lips correctly. My lips was quite flat and motionless, so they inhibit some of the muscles when I speak. Then the syllables of vowels are not pronounced or speak out fully, so result in a scenario that I sound weird and unclear in a certain word. So after realizing that, I put more motion in my lips, okay? And then try to pronounce in the accent that is most versatile in my opinion, which is American English accent. I'll pronounce from now on with fuller lips, mouth movement, and American accent to improve my overall clarity and pronunciation. The second thing on my list that I've noticed is the fluency. What I've realized is that some of the words I pronounced too much that I should be. For example, in the English language, there are some reduced sounds. Like well, I would say so. They will just pronounce as well as well instead of well. So this kind of reduced sounds, and due to the habits of the native English speakers, that another example would be the reduced to, from to to. One sentence here I can share is I have to, then it reduced to, and as I have to go to the store, instead of I have to go to the store. What's more is I find the tonality or the rhythm in terms of the rise and falls when you speak in a sentence can make it more interesting and more engaging in a way that is not always flat. Alright, in my native language, lots of the pronunciation and speech is kind of very like no changing. Overall, then we can look at these behaviors so we can understand that the rhythm is a component in the speech basics that can play quite an important role. Then affects the quality of your conversation. So you can see the rise and falls in the speech. Yes, that is what I mean. Alright? It is much more interesting than speaking in a flat sentence. So it also gets you like emotion going. This is such an emotion driven language. You sort of have to utilize the emotion inside of you, and then when you speak, then you let the emotion goes out, and they affect your tonality and the rhythm as you speak. As you speak, this is something I didn't even realize before I hit the record button for this video. So it is a new thing for me. I know the tonality and the rhythm, but the emotion part just suddenly came out to me that I think is quite important. The next one, and sometimes is often overlooked, is about the pace or the pause when you speak. Try to speak too fast does not always communicate better, or means your audience will get more information from what you're telling. Instead, the purpose of the conversation is to know that your audience has received the message. So with that in mind, that the pace matters. So for example, if you go through an idea that is quite complicated, or it requires some certain digestion before it goes forward, then you probably want to slow down a little bit, or even repeat the idea for one more time, and then also pause between one section to another to give this sort of as a breakdown or line, like a page break between two sections as a transition. So you let your audience know that when you pause, there's the next section or a new idea or something different coming up. Okay, so I not try to speak non-stop for the whole video. I'll slow down or even pause so it can help the audience catch up, digest, or understand where this is heading. Here is a behind the scene example of how I practice with my models and how I can learn the rhythm, tonality, fluency, pitch, also the pause, slow down the pace, or even increase the pace when I need to. As a practice, the more practice, the better it becomes, right? It becomes a muscle memory, and sometimes it's the vocabulary inside of our head, but as with more practice, it becomes a muscle memory. It becomes a speaking vocabulary, and your body language is also a speaking vocabulary, right? It becomes a memory. It builds into the emotion, and I trust with a lot of practice, this will become more automatic. So let's dive into this to see how I practice with my models here. It's copper, and the reason is simple. It's kind of difficult to consume copper unless you're eating a lot of leafy greens or consuming something specific things like vitamins. It's one of those things that they fall out when you look at a vital ingredient nutrition sheet on keto. A lot of them are really small, they're fairly negligible, they're wily, and they can end up being corrected just by getting some veggies in. It's a huge issue. Coppers is a little bit different. Coppers are very important when it's managed and manufactured when it comes to balance of things and place on certain hormones, and there's cofactors for lots of very important items. So let's break down what's so important and how you can correct it with food you can add it. Today's video is sponsored by Cryo Bars. In order to doing keto, this is a stable bars that can pretty much build into my standards. There's no wheat, sugar, or alcohol in it. It's a trifecta of the protein inch, whey protein isolate in it. It is a very, very solid keto part. It's cool to have the cryo parts create fridge and not soak into it, just have it. So it have to be one of the whole vitamins. So I definitely recommend you check it out, the Cryo Bar. The link's in the shop description below, and this ingredients is transparent. So all of the ingredients you can expel. It's quite delicious, and they have phenomenal vanilla cake chocolate. It's a vanilla cake flavor. It's amazing. So that link is down below in the description, and save yourself a few bucks and checking out the link below. And thank you for the Cryo Bar for supporting this channel and for my viewers something to eat. But the copper becomes very important as we'll look at some of the studies and indicates keto may lead to micronutrients deficiency. The yearly things that is easy to correct. The public nutrients shown the 12 weeks keto diet. This kind of reduce the intakes of vitamin C, reduce intake of B vitamins, intakes of manganese, intakes of some iron, potassium. These are the things that are real easy to correct. This is a huge deal because really, this day over day, it's a good change and you try to not catch a lot of the zinc today, or not catch a lot of manganese today, but tomorrow you got a salad, you have a store there, and that's pretty easy. Copper, it's so specific, it gets difficult. It's a nutritional sports. That's the same kind of thing. Take a look at a keto diet with a high carb diet. Instead, keto diets doing a lot of endurance workout and found similar findings. Ketogenic diets only ended up being consuming less than the fibers, less in the way of zinc, and less in the weight of copper, and then less in the weight of. An important one is again the copper that stands out, but practical explanation for everything else. For example, the increased thiamine makes sense because opportunity carb states and thiamine carb states might also require the processed carbs. So when an nutrition carb intake, sure, that's lower, but the thiamine needs to. So that's just an example of what I try to speak in the same pace of a native English speaker, and the body language and then the verbal cues that he gave to the audience while he speak. Okay, everyone, that's all for today's video. Hopefully you learned something valuable today and enjoy what I've talked to you about. These are the tips that I find myself learning just from my previous videos and comparing to my models and where I can improve. I have to say it helps a lot in terms of me improve the overall video qualities. I'll try to implement more tips in the futures and take you to the next level. Please leave a comment section below of your concerns and what topic you want me to explore in the future, and I'll happy to make another video just for the things that's troubling you. And please subscribe to the channel for future content, and see you on the next one.